Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited. I'm Nicola Barreto. Let's take a look at the headlines. The National Operations Center establishes an Ebola prevention information and response team in light of being proactive to secure the nation's borders from the Ebola virus. The Customs and Excise Division introduces a handheld and a mobile device that will work in identifying the smallest form of concealed narcotics, with a further move to secure our borders. And Soca Princesses defeat Guatemala 2-1 as they advance to the semi-final round of their quest to the 2015 Women's World Cup. Thank you for joining us. The National Operations Center of Trinidad and Tobago recently established a national Ebola prevention, information and response team as the nation continues to be vigilant towards the threat of the Ebola virus. The key words to drive the newly formed unit are integration, intelligence and intensity. As the Ebola threat continues to plague nations, the National Operations Center of Trinidad and Tobago meets to decide upon measures that will be put in place to deal with this potential danger. A national Ebola prevention, information and response team is now established, made up of officials from the public sector, ministries of government and public agencies, as well as representatives of private sector, civil society, international and regional agencies. According to the chairman of the team, the mission aims to protect the nation by preventing the spread of the Ebola virus.
What we have adopted as a very strategic approach to what we consider to be a serious challenge, one that will require from all of us as citizens of this country a selfless approach. We understand that there is much concern and much to be done by way of sharing information on this Ebola outbreak at the source countries and its implications for the arrival of that outbreak here in Trinidad and Tobago.
Chairman Brigadier Anthony Philip Spencer shares the strategies decided upon by the team. First, a prevention strategy to scout beyond our borders for potential risk or challenges that may emerge due to Ebola by means of screening, surveillance and testing. An information strategy to ensure the public's understanding, focusing on education, public awareness and community engagement. A response strategy with swift and efficient containment of infected persons. This includes the partnership of the first responders, identified as the fire, police, defense force, and Coast Guard services. Also, the importance of containment is included in the response strategy. Dr. Bernadette Theodore Gandhi, Pan American Health Organization and representative of the World Health Organization, confirms their support to Trinidad and Tobago in dealing with this challenge. As the nation continues to be alert, the status of Trinidad and Tobago as being prone to the virus is given.
Ebola for Trinidad and Tobago is a low-risk situation. We have noted that there is high level of outrage and then high-risk perception at this point in time. By the presence of this committee and then response team, definitely would be able to address the issues in an organized manner through the strategic framework. We from WHO, we respect the country's decisions. However, we continue to advocate the restriction of movement of countries, people who are from affected countries, as long as they don't have symptoms or they are not contacts from Ebola infected persons, should not be banned. Not necessarily I'm referring to Trinidad and Tobago, but overall this is our recommendation.
Dr. James Hospitalis, Executive Director of the Caribbean Public Health Agency, applauds Trinidad and Tobago for taking the initiative in preparing to protect citizens from the effects of the virus.
The government of Trinidad and Tobago is to be commended for this effort to pull together a national prevention, information and response team. And the plan has drawn on CARPHA and WHO guidelines in putting it together. Like WHO, we do not support travel bans for a number of reasons, that they as with HIV and other problems, they often don't work. They can lull countries into a false sense of security. So it is important to build up the national capacity to respond, ports of entry, infection prevention and control, communicating and educating to the public.
That story scripted by Shadi Allen. Meanwhile, the Minister of National Security spoke of collaboration between his ministry and the Ministry of Health in dealing with any potential outbreaks of infectious diseases.
There is now a prevention and response team, a unit, and it is headed by Brigadier General Anthony Philip Spencer, the Vice Chief of Defence Staff, who's now the Acting Chief of Defence Staff. So, and we have been ahead of the game for months now. As soon as this started, Minister Fuad Khan and myself, we have been liaising with each other. The committee was formed, and they've been looking at all different aspects, firstly to ensure that prevention, and also if heaven forbid, there is any type of infiltration, that there can be an immediate response, dealing with all aspects, inclusive of the fire service, the National Operations Center, the ODPM, the police stations. So there's also going to be public awareness campaigns, and also going to be situations where training is going to be provided and briefings for all arms of the law enforcement agencies to know exactly what to do and if and when it needs to be done.
The move to secure all borders will take another step closer toward detecting the entry of illegal substances, that should be substances, through a new device added to the fleet of scanners. The multi-mode threat detector, while it is a handheld and a mobile device, it will work in identifying the smallest form of narcotics concealed in packages.
Customs and Excise Division officers will now have an additional device to help them detect illegal substances hidden in packages. This as the division has acquired a multi-mode threat detector device. The high-tech portable device has the capability of detecting peroxides, targons, methamphetamine precursors, which can switch from particle to vapor analysis. Present for the unveiling of the device, Finance Minister Larry Howard explained why our customs and excise officers needed these instruments.
Our thriving energy and business sectors are attracting more and more persons to our shores. Trinidad and Tobago, therefore, must step up its border control practices in commensurate fashion. I am informed that 302 of these machines are deployed around the world, and with an error rate of less than 1%, are making a huge difference in the global detection rate of narcotics and explosives, as well as contraband. But as nifty and efficient as this piece of equipment is, the multi-mode threat detector is but one part of this government's multi-pronged response to the challenges at our borders.
It's expected that these devices will work to support other scanners located at the ports. The minister added that new officers have been recruited to support the fleet.
We've also allocated funds in this year's budget, 2015, for the acquisition of trained sniffer dogs at our airports. The allocation includes funds for the training of the dog handlers, and the dogs will be utilized in the baggage handling areas to detect illegal drugs. So another initiative which we are putting in place. And then customs operations at our seaports are being enhanced through the acquisition of container scanners. As you know, Trinidad, situated as it is along the major north-south, east-west routes and shipping lanes, is a major transshipment point, and thousands of cargo containers are handled at our ports each year. Already one brand new scanner donated by the People's Republic of China is in operation. The government has also purchased 4 more container scanners from the United States, 2 of which are already here and expected to be fully operational by the end of November.
The device has the capability of detecting a grain of rice broken up into millions of particles within a package. Officers at the Customs Division demonstrated how this device will work even with the simple swipe of a swab over a package.
They would use a swab to pass on the edges of the package to see if they can identify what is in the package. It has given an alarm, and if you can look at the results, you'll see it identifies the contents of the package as cocaine.
The effectiveness of the device, as explained by U.S. Customs Border Protection Advisor Attaché Robert Gross, noted that in the U.S. it is specially used in detecting explosives.
These machines are very effective. While we do not utilize a large number of these in the U.S. for trafficking, we utilize them for explosive detection. Is primarily what we use them for, but they are very effective. They're, of course, very costly, but they have a very high success rate in identifying contraband as well as explosives.
Consultant to the Customs and Excise Division in acquiring the devices gave an idea of why the multi-mode threat detector was selected for the job.
Drugs and explosives are very sticky to the skin. So once you touch it, it stays on your fingers. Even if you wash your hands, the traces are there, and that's what these machines do. These machines have the capability of identifying all these traces that you cannot see and identify them clearly. It now gives customs that tool where in situations where they couldn't see anything, they can just pass in an area and they will be able to identify what is present. It also, again, has a mode where you can check the vapor, but drugs and toxic chemicals have an entirely different makeup. And so with toxic chemicals, the machine would be able to smell the area and give you a response. As in the case of drugs, you will have to actually do a swab because it's much lower than the toxic chemicals are.
While the cost of one device ranges from a little over $500,000 TT, maintenance is said to be low, and approximately 6 to 12 devices will be purchased in the near future to be put to use at all ports of entry, national security agencies such as police and post offices. Kimberly Ram-Calawan, News 4.
News 4 continues right after this. Stay with us. October 17th is dubbed International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, and the Ministry of People and Social Development hosted a seminar to remind the country to fight against all odds as we work towards abolishing poverty.
October 17th, known as the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, began in 1993 by the United Nations General Assembly. Since then, we observe it every year to promote awareness of the need to eradicate poverty in all countries. In Trinidad and Tobago, the Ministry of the People and Social Development's Poverty Reduction and Eradication Research and Policy Unit are also observing this important day as they address citizens and school children in honor of poverty research and the fight against poverty. Leave no one behind. Think, decide, and act together against extreme poverty. This is the theme given to this year's International Day for the Eradication of Poverty. Minister of State in the Ministry of the People and Social Development, the Honorable Vanella Allen Toppin, noted how the ministry is working towards this strong theme.
The challenge for us as a nation in achieving this reality remains the strengthening of partnerships among social sector ministries, the private sector, NGOs and CBOs to foster greater gains in national, social and human development. The pursuit of economic growth and development should involve a commitment to securing transfers to households and communities, particularly in the areas of housing, employment, health, education, and we are responsible for that in the Ministry of the People. As many of you know, several measures were announced in the budget for fiscal 2014-15 to further assist the poor and disadvantaged. These include the increase in old age pension, increase in the minimum wages, and a $500 assistance grant to be awarded to disadvantaged mothers.
The minister explained the factors responsible for the reduction identified in recent research by the University of the West Indies on the decline of poverty in Trinidad and Tobago as we continue to fight against this ill in our society.
There's still much work to be done, but we continue to make progress. At the University of the West Indies 2013 Conference on the Economy, Dr. Uric Bob, in his acknowledgement that TNT has experienced poverty reduction over the years, asserted that across administrations formed by different political parties, various policies and programs, though not specifically targeted at the reduction of poverty, have contributed handsomely to that goal. These include universal access to primary and secondary education, a major increase in opportunities for tertiary education, school nutrition program, progress in other areas such as health services, affordable housing, sanitation services, and reliable supplies of potable water have been modest despite major expenditure in these areas.
The call to think, decide, and act together against extreme poverty highlights the need for persons to make the best decisions in life to steer them out of poverty or ensure they do not fall under the poverty line. Focusing on education as the main driving force, the Honorable Vanella Allen Toppin reminds youth how privileged they are to acquire an education for free today in Trinidad and Tobago.
We in Trinidad and Tobago are so fortunate that we have so much going for us. We have so much that is free, and you know that pre-primary education is almost entirely free. Primary education is free. Secondary education is free in Trinidad and Tobago. Tertiary education is free. Breakfast is free. Lunch is free. When you're going to school, am I going right? Most of the books are free. The public transportation to go to school is free. You understand what I'm saying? When I went to school in this same country, we had to pay for all of those things.
In closing, the minister urges the youth of the nation not to depend on the government, but to master the individual by making the best decisions to ensure you are not affected by poverty. She reminds us that it is up to us to rule our destinies, which start with a solid education and hard work. Shade Allen, News 4.
The Ministry of Land and Marine Resources hosted a Memorandum of Understanding signing ceremony recently. The ceremony marked the introduction of new geographic information system technology via the Land Information System of Trinidad and Tobago to various ministries and state agencies. Minister of Land and Marine Resources, the Honorable Jairam Simangal, introduced the use of this technology, which will support open access, collaboration and transparency to improve planning management and decision-making regarding the use of state lands.
A geographic information system, which is GIS, will allow all of us to visualize, to question, to analyze, and interpret data, and to understand relationships and patterns and trends. And all of our ministries, if we understand what this GIS is about, it can actually help us with respect to managing all our resources and making proper decisions in managing state assets.
The minister noted that it will be working with the Inter-American Development Bank, the IDB, in implementing this system. The signing of the Memorandum of Understanding included stakeholders from the Ministry of Finance and the Economy's Valuation Division, Environmental Management Authority, Estate Management and Business Development Company Limited, and the Ministry of Public Utilities and the Environment, Trinidad and Tobago Meteorological Services. We take a break and we come back with more. Stay with us. To sport news now, the Soca Princesses, they had a surprise visit from His Excellency Dr. Neil Parsan, Trinidad and Tobago Ambassador to Washington, and spoke to TV4's sport journalist Wayne Cunningham following his cordial interaction with the ladies.
News 4 Sports at the 2014 CONCACAF Women's Championship is brought to you by the Ministry of Sport, Sport for All, Sport for Life, and the Sport Company of Trinidad and Tobago.
Privilege. And Mr. Phillips, let me say, I've been following you. I know you for several years. And the work you have done and the work the coach has been doing. You know, I was actually in a meeting in Mexico, and I stopped my meeting to look at your game against the US. And I broke my heart at the very end. But it's okay, because you did extremely well in that particular game. I was very, very proud of the performance that you put up, and that header, no, it wasn't a header. Direct shot. Was it a header? No, header. Yes. The girl with the short hair, yes. It irked me. But notwithstanding, you guys did so well. I'll tell you, I'm a football fan for many years. I used to go to Hillview College in the past. I played for my school. I went to Germany to follow Trinidad and Tobago in 2006. So football is really part of my upbringing. It's part of my life. I'm a Chelsea fan, sorry to say.
Ambassador, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us. First, let's touch on the sport. Tell us what's the effect the girls' performance having up here in the United States in the CONCACAF Women's Championship in just your area in Washington and that diaspora you spoke about.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you first of all, among the diaspora, it's hot. It's fever pitch.
Okay.
In fact, I've received many calls from members of the diaspora asking what else can they do to support these girls. In fact, we have been following them very carefully. On a personal note, I'm a great soccer fan, so I really appreciate the effort they have been putting forth. In fact, they are probably bigger ambassadors than you and I could be for Trinidad and Tobago. It has been fever pitch. It has been welcoming, I think, by the international community as well as our diaspora. And I really sincerely wish them the best to go all the way. I will be cheering for them come tomorrow. Believe me.
Ambassador, the government's trust into sport is unprecedented, and we have been seeing the results in track and field, in cricket, and of course in football. It's one of the most successful football years we've had in a long time. Tell us, is the public up here, the Trinidad and Tobago public up here, noticing that, first to begin, that effort the government is putting into sport and the results it's bearing?
I think these ladies, as ambassadors unto themselves in the field of women's soccer here, a couple of things we have going for us. To answer your question in a very carte blanche way, yes, there's notice. But let's also put things into perspective. These are women. These are young women selling our country in a way that we have not seen it in a very long time. It brings me back to 2006 in Germany with our Soca Warriors and our football team. And I think the diaspora here, they very much appreciate the efforts of these young ladies. And I think we have to also assist them in pushing them from strength to strength to elevate it. Having discussed this issue with them just a short while ago, I think we appreciate some of the challenges that may have. So I think we all have a role to play, even outside of the ambit of government, as private sectors, as concerned citizens, as global citizens. What can we do to help them? I think that's the question I wish to throw to all of you out there. How can we help them and propel them into success?
Massive support is expected for Trinidad and Tobago in Game 3 of the CONCACAF Women's Championship in Washington, D.C. Let's hope the 12th man will help us bring it home. I'm Wayne Cunningham in Washington, D.C. for News 4 Sports.
News 4 Sports at the 2014 CONCACAF Women's Championship is brought to you by the Ministry of Sport, Sport for All, Sport for Life, and the Sport Company of Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, that was a pre-Game 3 visit by the ambassador, and the Soca Princesses defeated Guatemala 2-1 in the 2014 CONCACAF Women's Championship at the Robert F. Kennedy Memorial Stadium on Monday. The first goal was headed in by Kenya Cordner in the 73rd minute before the second was scored by Captain Maylee Atin Johnson via penalty. The victory over Guatemala secures Trinidad and Tobago's place in the semi-final round. The Soca Princesses finished their Group A program with 6 points. They now advance to the knockout round, where they would meet Costa Rica in Pennsylvania on Friday for a spot in both the CONCACAF Final and the World Cup. Sport journalist Wayne Cunningham and videographer Nicholson Paul files this report.
News 4 Sports at the 2014 CONCACAF Women's Championship is brought to you by the Ministry of Sport, Sport for All, Sport for Life, and the Sport Company of Trinidad and Tobago.
Trinidad and Tobago came into the RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C., only needing a draw to advance to the semi-finals of the CONCACAF Women's Championships 2014. After a credible performance in Game 2, coming out with a 1-0 win versus Haiti, the girls are confident in camp. Let's see what took place in Game 3. The pressure started as early as the 3rd minute. Akila Mullen with a long-distance try, which is tipped over the bar by Alicia Navas in the Guatemalan goal. In the 20th minute, Kenya Cordner gets into a good position to receive a cross from Darnell Maskell, but she hit over the bar. Then in the 37th minute, Rhea Belgrave came up from the back to try her luck with a header, but wide was the result. Trinidad and Tobago dominating in the possession department in the first half, but no goals. We need a victory or a draw to go forward. We see what happens in the second half. The goal did finally come in the 73rd minute, and it was that Mullen corner combination. Akila with a cross, and Kenya with a beauty of a header to finish well. Yaya adjusting herself in midair to bury the header to make it 1-0 Trinidad and Tobago. Nine minutes later, she was upended in the penalty area by Lundy Barrios. Captain Mary Atten Johnson stepped up and converted the penalty with confidence. In the 89th minute, Guatemala pulled one back. But Trinidad and Tobago held on for the win and a place in the semi-finals of the CONCACAF Women's Championship. Trinidad and Tobago having a non-alcoholic celebration after the match versus Guatemala in the CONCACAF Women's Championship. But it's not celebrating the victory. It's the birthday of Donnell Maskell. I'm Wayne Cunningham for News 4 Sports in Washington, D.C.
News 4 Sports at the 2014 CONCACAF Women's Championship is brought to you by the Ministry of Sport, Sport for All, Sport for Life, and the Sport Company of Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, once again, we extend congratulations to the Soca Princesses on their victory against Guatemala. Belated birthday greetings to Donnell Maskell, and of course, good luck to their game on Friday against Costa Rica in Pennsylvania. Well, that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 Report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited. Remember, you can view a repeat of our newscast weekdays at 6 a.m. and feel free to visit our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/RTV4. Also, be sure to visit our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/THEGISL TV. Thank you for joining us.